Good morning. Let's see if I can remember how to do this after a week of spring break. I hope all of you had a good break, and I hope you're ready for finishing up Henrietta Lacks and getting ready to start Ordinary Grace, which seriously is one of my favorite novels of the past 20 years or so. Today, I want to pick up the idea of logical fallacies and keep going with that. I've covered a lot of the main things I like on the Henrietta Lacks book. We've talked about the religious aspect. We've talked about the family to some degree. We've talked about the medical abuses that happened. And a lot of the things that are in the rest of the book seem to me to be continuations of that. For example, Henrietta's daughter in the state home for the people who were, uh, mentally ill. Some of those other sorts of things are all the same sort of things that we've talked about. The family's reaction to the cells seems to just keep going over some of the same ground. The dealing with the religious versus the scientific um, towards the end of the book again are all things we have covered. So I want to take these next 2 days and talk about the logical fallacies because in the novel, I don't think logical fallacies really fit either Trail of Lightning or Ordinary Grace. And so we're going to finish them up here. I think if you look at the family, you can see sometimes emotional, logical fallacies and how they deal with Johns Hopkins. And I think you can see logical fallacies and how some of the scientists view the Lacks family. On Friday, well, just let me keep going here. Remember, today it's Group B in class. Um, Wednesday, it's Group A in class. Writing Lab A on Friday. On Friday, there will be a short video and there will be some readings. I'll get to that in just a second. Group B next Monday, Ordinary Grace. We're going to start that right away. Group A next Wednesday, and then Writing Lab B on March 26th. We will probably have the beginning of the book review assignment covered, so people will be able to ask questions in Writing Lab B. Friday's assignment, as I've hinted 2 or 3 times now, we'll have a brief video. The video will basically go over the assignment. I'm going to tell you right now that Friday's assignment will basically be taking a class period and writing a quick response. There'll be 1 or 2 articles posted on D2L. I'm asking that you respond to those articles, that you use a quotation from the book, a quotation from the article, and you use proper in-text citations. The response should be 1 page double spaced. All of the details will be in that video on Friday. I'll have it due the following week or something like that. But your class period will be a writing period. The video will be like 3 minutes long. As I go through the logical fallacies, again, remember that all the images were stolen from the web, that the page numbers refer to Everything's an Argument with Readings, which was the 8th edition, and that this is not a formal paper, so be sure you cite your sources better than I did. If you've taken speech, I am willing to bet that everyone has at some point in the speech class heard logos, pathos, and ethos. And you've been told that logos is an appeal to logic, pathos appeals to the emotions, and ethos appeals to the qualities of the person making the argument. It's the same root as ethics, and the idea is that the speaker has to be an ethical speaker to make the argument valid. Quick reminder, logical fallacies are argumentative moves flawed by their nature or structure. That fallacies can either be illegitimate arguments or irrelevant points, and they are often identified because they lack evidence that supports their claim. They undermine the logic of your argument. They are not something you are supposed to do unless you want to be a politician and lie a lot. Okay. And then finally, their errors in reasoning, there are specific ways in which arguments fall apart due to faulty connections, and they undermine the credibility of objective scholarly writing. The idea here is, as you're writing in the paper Friday, your book review, any work that you're doing for any class, a logical fallacy undermines your credibility as a writer. And whatever it is you want to do when you graduate, the purpose of writing in college is to develop the skills to be a scholarly writer. We're going to talk today mostly about fallacies of emotional arguments. We're going to talk about the misuse of pathos, okay? Pulling on your reader's heartstrings or raising their blood pressure, over sentimentalizing, sorry about that, and it violates good faith. The purpose of any argument is to communicate meaning. The purpose of anything you write in class is to communicate meaning. And meaning is the sending and receiving of messages. All right? Communication, is the sending and receiving of messages. And if you violate the good faith on which legitimate arguments depend, the message may not be received in the way you intend it. The first one I want to talk about is scare tactics. You're going to frighten people, exaggerate possible dangers as well beyond their statistical likelihood. Now, in some ways, we already talked about this in that first presentation when we talked about the slippery slope. The slippery slope says if we do X, Y is going to happen and Y is going to be very bad, and that's going to lead to Z, which is even worse. And I talked then about the idea that all of these things were going to end up leading to, nuclear war and end of life as we know it. The scare tactic is a little bit different. It's going to appeal to more base fears, but like the slippery slope, it's going to take care of the possible, but it's not going to deal with the probable. So 1/3 of all senior citizens will fall this year. So buy Life Connect. And we've all been trained to deal with the help, I've fallen and I can't get up. It's an example of a scare tactic. And look, I'm scared about my mother. She's 86 years old, and she fell a few years ago and, spent the summer in a hospital and then an assisted living thing until her ankle healed. But the fact of the matter is, she didn't need Life Connect. There were 4 neighbors getting her into an ambulance within 3 minutes. All right. Bad breath makes you unpopular, so use Listerine. We're going to scare people into the idea that if you have too many onions, you better be carrying a flask of Listerine around with you. Listerine's not going to solve popularity. It might solve bad breath, but the scare tactic here is popularity. The scare tactic is what's hinted at, that if people fall, they won't be able to get up and they're going to die in their bathtub. The next one I want to talk about is FOMO. Now, FOMO is not necessarily a logical fallacy in and of itself, but I think it's part of the bandwagon fallacy. Everybody's doing it, therefore you have to have this thing. And I think advertisers in particular play on FOMO, and they play on this idea that you're going to miss out, and because you're going to miss out, it'll be important for you to um, buy X or buy Y and have everything that you need. Sorry for that throat clearing there. So, this won't be around forever, so get it now. I ordered a couple of things on Amazon. They told me that there were 14 left. My products arrived. I checked the Amazon site again. There were still 14 left. Amazon is going to show you that there's only one or two or three things left lots of times. All right, I'm a collector of sorted things, including fountain pens and pocket knives. And ever so often, there's a limited edition, or there's a special edition, or there's a sprint run. And those runs are extremely short and extremely expensive. All right. I mean, some of them are in the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. But using those terms, limited edition, sprint run, people are going to buy them because they're afraid of missing out. And Thanksgiving, the doorbuster deals on Black Friday, or any countdown timers where you have like 5 minutes to make this happen, or you lose this brilliant deal. All of those are designed to play in your fear of missing out. And then there's the overly sentimental appeal, the one that appeals to our love of mom and kittens and puppies. It's the one where, the kids send grandma the note, or the kids teach grandma how to use the iPad so that she can FaceTime with them. It's those appeals to over sentimentality. And one of the best ones was one that I became aware of during the pandemic. Drink what your mama gave you. She made a handmade costume the night before a school play that you forgot to tell her about. Not to make you happy, but because she had a reputation to uphold. Mom comes through. And you copied her jeans, her spin, her shoes, her scrunchie, and whether you realize it or not, her music. She can also win the argument in 4 words: because I said so. Everybody's got a because I said so moment with mom, I think. This is appeal to sentiment. This is an appeal to people in their 30s and their 40s, trying to get them to think back with nostalgia to what life was like when they were young. It's an appeal to the sentiment, and I think it kind of crosses the line. And mom invented rideshare. She didn't need a dating app, and she could scare the heck out of you. And I'm still scared of my mother, even though she's in her mid 80s. I think she can still whip my gluteal area. The bandwagon appeal, as I mentioned earlier, in a lot of ways is akin to FOMO. The bandwagon appeal says everybody's doing it, you should do it too. If everybody else thinks one way, you should think that same way. When I was growing up in Baptist Sunday school class, we had to memorize the verse about broad is the way and wide is the gate that leads to destruction, to remind us that just because everybody was doing it, we shouldn't. But the bandwagon appeal works exceptionally well. In movies, there's a perfect example from Mean Girls. I saw Katie Heron wearing army pants and flip-flops, so I bought army pants and flip-flops. I will confess I've never seen Mean Girls. But McDonald's, with billions and billions served, Pepsi, the choice of a new generation, all of those are the idea that everyone, or at least everyone that you consider part of the important group that surrounds you, is doing it. And if everyone is doing it, you should do it as well. Daily writing. Which logical fallacy do you believe you've seen most often? Give an example of that fallacy. Those of you watching, I hope to see you in class on Wednesday. And again, remember that the Friday example is going to be all writing. It's going to be as if you have an hour of in-class writing. See you Wednesday. Have a good day.